Commence primary ignition.
Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Dorian Kinji here. Played Cad Bane on the Book of Boba Fett on Star Wars Disney Plus. You're watching the virtual Cantina network. Have fun.
Hi.
Hello there.
Happy Monday, Rebels. Happy Labor Day.
Yes.
It's
been a good one.
Yeah, it is a holiday weekend for many people, though I know today, Skip, you were saying that you were working.
It was a work day for me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were laboring on Labor Day, which is infuriating in some ways. But how was the rest of your weekend?
Weekend was great. Had a good time. Spent some time with my daughter. Went out to dinner with her and her boyfriend Aaron, and then Avery and then Bridget and I hung out some. And today was a go back to work today, because in construction, you maybe get Christmas, New Year's, and sometimes part of Thanksgiving. The rest of it, there's always somebody that's wanting to do some work. We had guys out working there today. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was telling you before the show started that I did a little bit of work on Saturday morning as I was on the train, but it was mostly just like emails and setting up things for the week. And I'm one of those where I like block my time on my calendar for tasks, and I'm just moving things like deeper out into. Let me tell you, I moved stuff into November. Like it's this bad. Things are crazy because it's Halloween season right now. I'm in season. And like the stores are starting to set their aisles with Halloween costumes and all of that. And so we have like consumption tracking and store visits to do and all that kind of stuff that takes up all of September and October. So that if there's any other bigger projects that need to happen, like some of the analytics that'll happen postseason is November, but other things I'm like, this is going to have to either need it to happen in July or in August, or it's going to bump to November now. Like that's kind of how it goes.
Just gets moved around. I've got houses up for sale. We have a big giant parade of homes. It's a home builder competition. It's kind of like, put out your homes, show everybody what we do, different categories and some judging and stuff like that. I've got 2 homes in the parade this year. And so it's kind of like right now in my world, it's the mad dash to get ready for the parade. Plus, I got ICCC. I think I said enough C's for that one. Coming up the first weekend of October. Yeah, it's like
that's not the same timing as New York Comic Con.
I don't know when New York Comic Con is, so it's hard for me to tell you that. But it's the first weekend of October. It's is it, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th or something like that?
Yeah,
and that's in Washington.
New York Comic Con, and it's a little bit later. Let me see. I should know this because here's the thing: I'm not working New York Comic Con. But my company,
How did that happen?
the company I work for, will have booths there for the other brands. Like there will be a NECA booth that like there always is, and a bunch of the others. Oh wow, it's later. It's the October 17th to October 20th is New York Comic Con, which is crazy. Yeah, and so by the way, everyone, welcome to the show. I see people are slowly starting to join. Our numbers are ticking up of who's watching live. It is Labor Day, so we expect that people are barbecuing. Maybe even laboring or enjoying their long weekend. Ashley has a commitment tonight, so unfortunately she couldn't make it. But Skip and I are going to do our best to cover the controversial topic of Maul. I love him so much, even though he's a villain, and I think he's like the kind of character where you're supposed to learn your lesson by watching what he does and be like, don't do that. He is the lesson character for sure. So I'm excited to get into it, especially in Rebels, where we see his end. Like this is the end of the line for Maul.
He's like the middle character. You've got the really good characters, and you got the really bad characters, and then you got this guy in the middle who's definitely not good, definitely is leaning towards bad, but is not quite as bad as some of the others.
Yeah, he's evil and he's dark side, but he's also like right all the time. That's what, except in one crazy way where his obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi is his downfall, and it leads to all of the
His
bad things
redemption.
that. Well, his redemption. It get he's one of the few who doesn't get a redemption, does he? Um, I it's the kind of thing where it's like maybe we feel a little pity for Maul, which I will say, if Maul found out that people pitied him, he'd be so angry. So it's this like
Yes.
great ironic twist that in the end that like Obi-Wan pitied him, and I'm like that would make my blood boil, and I'm sure it did for Mr. Maul as well. It's kind of this ironic like salt in the wound. Now, Rebels is canonically the end of the line for Maul chronologically, but from a production perspective, this episode where this clip is from, where his final lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi, isn't the last we see him all because we get him in Clone Wars season 7, which happens production
After the
order
six.
wise a couple years later. Yeah, and it's some of the best. Some of the best. Maul never die. That's for sure.
Now, where did Solo come out in that? Because he ends up in the end of Solo as Kira takes over.
Yes, I have to think because Solo was 2018 and the finale of Rebels was 2019. So Solo did happen
Before
before this
the
production
end.
wise. Yeah,
Yes.
obviously chronologically, this is before. That's also before Rebels, and before most of the events of almost the entirety of the Rebels series. Solo happens during that time frame. Because it's the early forming of the rebellion. But yeah, Clone Wars season 7, which is the last time we see him in a TV project, uh, production order wise again, I thought was some of the best. Like that, as we talk best in Maul, we would be doing a disservice to everyone in the audience if we didn't talk about Clone Wars season 7 and the Siege of Mandalore and the way that all plays out and everything. So we're going to cover that as well, for everyone who's eagerly awaiting. What we'll be discussing tonight. But before we get into that, I do want to talk a little more about Labor Day and what's going on in the pop culture, like we always do. I finally saw Alien Romulus, which I thought was spectacular. And then this upcoming week, we've got Beetlejuice coming out. So I'm very excited about that. We actually just rewatched Beetlejuice last week in preparation for that, and I am ready.
Dave, you mean when Han Solo starts the entire rebellion?
I know. Let me roll my eyes. First of
Yeah.
all, Emphas Nest was already doing the rebellion stuff. He got her some trinkets, if I remember correctly. I don't know, some oil. There's other people already working on the rebellion. Mon Mothma, not Padme, she died, but Mon Mothma, Bail
Bail.
Organa, yeah, and the other fulcrums, etc. Ahsoka, we're working behind the scenes, and Emphas Nest and Warwick Davis's character were tangential to that, and Han just happened to intersect with them at a very early point in his career because all 50 people in Star Wars know each other.
Yes.
Yeah, every character that has a speaking line is a cousin or a roommate or someone.
Or has worked with Bail Organa.
Yes, Bail was very much the linchpin. Yeah.
Well, Bail is the 6 degrees of separation for Star Wars.
Yeah.
You've got so many moves before you get to Bail Organa.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. And in theory, you could sort of say the same thing about Darth Vader, right? Because he's only really one remove from Bail. But the idea of Bail being like the linchpin is very, very accurate. And yeah, I like
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, he's there. He's definitely the Kevin Bacon in this galaxy. Yeah, Leia's such a great character, and I actually really like her mom too, Brea Organa. They don't do a lot with her. They give her a little more in the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, the streaming series from a couple of years ago. Like she had a little more to do, but apparently in the books there's a lot more with her and everything. I'd like to see just more of the Organas in general. Like I think they're an interesting family. Being very political and high-ranking on Alderaan and yet secretly trying to undermine the entirety of not just their government, but like the entire government system. You could use the word terrorist. Certainly, I wouldn't use the word insurrectionist anymore because now it has like a taint to it in America, at least. But like that idea that they're trying to overthrow the entire government that's some really interesting stuff. Like I'd read more about that or watch a show about that.
Well, and I'd like to know what is Leia's mom's. Oh God, why am I drawing a blank? Brea. Yeah. I'd like to know the story about Brea and her climb and having to have her heart replaced.
I remember that.
yeah. There's a story about her climbing this mountain and getting injured, and some kind of like heart type of replacement. And I'm trying to say, was that some of that was referenced in Obi-Wan, wasn't it?
It might have been. That show, I will say, left very little very little stayed with me from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And I know that's an unpopular opinion on this network. I think most of the people in the VCN really like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. It was kind of a nothing burger for me. The one thing that stuck with me was when Obi-Wan Kenobi mentions the name Quinlan. He's like, Quinlan was here. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh, like, can I please have more of that? Where is Quinlan? What happened? And then they never follow through on it. So I realized that that was very intentionally an Easter egg, but it was also one of the few things said out loud where I was like, can we pull that thread and not the other 50 threads that we have over here that don't make a lick of sense? Like, I'm not
Yeah.
interested in most of what's happening in the show, but like, I would like to know where Quinlan Voss is.
The problem with it is you've got a very critical beginning. Like, how he got where he is, and we know where he ends. And in the middle, you can't mess it up too much, or you're going to screw canon. So it's like you got a very narrow road to travel on. So
Exactly.
my guess is,
Well,
much like a lot of people turned on Acolyte,
yeah,
especially when Kiadi Mundi starts talking about, just opens his mouth. Kiadi talks and everybody just tears him up. And I'm like, they had to be careful, or they were going to do the same kind of thing in Obi-Wan, which is stray off the path of what canon has told them.
The path. I will say I'm not a canon Nazi the way that like other people are, where they're like, this is to the letter of the blah blah blah. And I was like, there's room for interpretation, especially across all the different media. Here's the thing, and there were no Kiadi Mundi stands. Most people can't even say his name or didn't know who he was or what actor played him. I only knew who he was because we had the actor signing autographs for him at top. So like that's how I even remembered the name of the character. But I thought it was just the same species until he was credited in the credits. I was like, oh, that's not Kiadi Mundi. It's some other guy from the same stupid species with the cone head. So fine, whatever. But like, who was standing for Kiadi Mundi until this nonsense, right? Like people are just finding ways to be angry.
The person that destroyed canon the most was George Lucas himself.
Of course.
I mean, there's all this, the prequels were a total rewrite of everything. And who was it? I was watching, maybe it was Nick Fulcrum. Somebody was talking about it, and it was like, if you go back, some people like to say, oh well, Lucas had this all planned out in advance, and that's not the truth. The truth was that he changed that over and over again. The different names. Who was Obi-Wan's student? Who was was Anakin dead? Was Darth Vader? There was a lot of that changing on as he was developing that story. And so, I mean, he's the worst one for changing canon. But people seem to forgive him that because he created all of it, but don't want to give anybody else a break for when they strike up against canon. I get it a little bit, but I mean, come on, it's in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Basically,
it's all tales. Yeah,
it's a novel. I mean, this is not historical.
No,
let's not get ourselves worked up in a twist.
Well, too late. I mean, that's where all the action is, right? And that's what's sort of infuriating from all of it. There was one thing that really stuck with me from The Acolyte, which I think I've said on this channel wasn't my favorite show. There's been a bunch of streaming series. I would put it squarely in the middle or under the middle line for me. But that being said, it didn't deserve any of the hate that it got, and certainly didn't deserve any of the racism and misogyny and nonsense that these fanboys threw at it. And I thought Disney did a poor job defending it like they've done in the past. So that's par for the course. But there was one thing that really stuck with me, though, that I think, again, another thread we should be pulling. I think it's the final episode. It's actually quite near the end of the entire series, where that senator confronts the bald green lady. Why am I blanking on her name? Vernestra Rowe.
Vernestra.
Yeah. And basically it was like, the Jedi are a menace, and you need to be put in check, and there needs to be checks and balances against your power. And you can't just run around the galaxy and do whatever you want. We want oversight for this police department. And she was having none of it. And I was like, this senator knows what's up. Like, and there needs to be a group of people overseeing the Jedi because they are a nuisance and a menace and don't know how to wield their power anymore effectively. And it's a nightmare. And that one senator, I was like, that should be the show. Like, we should have actually had the um, whatever happened be exposed, and there should have been a political intrigue to this. And that would have made it a million times better. But again, the thing that doesn't work for me in that show is the twin thing. There's no need for it. Like, the twin thing just fully lands flat. Amandla is great. She could have played one character and we could have been on our way. The twin thing is pointless.
Yeah, didn't it was unnecessary. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of like you. I mean, there are portions of that show that I really liked, and there were some parts that fell flat that could have been better. But I
hmm
was of the opinion, shut your mouth and let them get to season 2 and see if they can't, you know, pick up on some of these things and improve this and make it something
hmm
that's good. I mean, there's not a series that we've had that didn't have a season 1 that was not as glorious as season 2, 3, or 4, or 5, 6, or definitely season 7 of Clone Wars. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. I need some time to cook. I think the idea of that time period still makes sense, and I would like to see something happening in the general. My big pitch was actually all the Jedi, all the Sith, lots of both. Like, I don't need one secret villain, and I think I've said that multiple times now. One secret villain is stupid. I would like there to be lots of villains, and there should be on equal footing with the Jedi, and that should be the fight. And it should have been 10,000 years ago. There should have been no Kiani Mundi because all it did, it opened themselves up for controversy for no reason. Like, it's the kind of distraction nonsense. Like, right now, people are trying to figure out, like, did Kamala Harris actually work at McDonald's? Of course, it wasn't on her resume. Like, I worked at McDonald's in high school. It's on none of my resumes. Why would it be
yeah.
on any resume? Like, get serious, people.
What
Um,
purpose? What purpose would it have to be on your
yeah,
resume? How is
but
that
like,
going to
it's the
advance you?
perfect distraction from, like, the actual issue at hand. But
Well,
anyway,
I have a brother, an adopted brother, and he is definitely does not follow the same politics that I do. And it was interesting. He watched Acolyte, and we would talk weekly about it. And he, you know, is quite conservative. And he's like, "There's none of that there. All this stuff that they brought up that was going to be in the show, that it was going to be, you know, uh, um, pro this, pro that." And he was just like, "I don't see any of it. I don't know what they're
mhm,
talking about."
yeah,
And I was like, "Well, if he doesn't see it, that ain't there."
yeah.
Um, but
I,
Ashley's going to be very upset because I have my Ski Pruckle shirt on tonight, and she
oh,
doesn't get to see it. So there we go.
well, I'm in my.
Just
This is a
because
weird
so
shaped
sad.
box. We're gonna have to send Dave our complaints about the boxes, because we can't see my arms appropriately in my sleeveless. Um, and by the way, if
Getting
anyone's
out the
looking
guns, you got to slide over to get the guns out.
exactly like, oh, just I'm over here petting the cat. I am petting the cat, which is why I'm like I had to lean and turn the camera right now because he only needs attention when I'm in here doing something else. If I actively go to pet this cat, he like runs to the other room.
Well, he is a
Um,
cat, so he knows.
exactly. This is how they are. I know, only on your terms. Yes. Yeah.
So I was telling
It's
Mark
it's
earlier as
one
we.
direction of consent.
So yeah, I'll tell everybody I booked my adult children for a trip to Disney World this December, and and we were kind of reviewing like, okay, who else going? I've got my daughter, my two stepsons, all of their significant others, and um, my middle child Ryan, his girlfriend Marissa, who they've been together for like almost 7 years. Uh, um, she and I are the ones that are probably the most excited about this trip. Everybody else is
Yep.
kind of going with us, but Marissa and I are going to be like, okay, we're going to go see this, we're going to go do
hmm
that, we're going to go there. Because Marissa used to work at Hollywood Studios, so
Oh,
she's
nice.
eager. Oh yeah, she was there prior to the Toy Story and Galaxy's Edge opening up, so she
hmm
hasn't been there since then. So I'm like,
So she
oh,
hasn't been able to scan any crates.
yeah, we're going to go in there and have a big old time.
Oh,
So
good.
she and I will be in charge of making the plans of where we're going to eat.
Oh my God. I got to put this comment up. Dave O'Neill. I've never had in the history of anywhere people tell anyone to go visit Tom Sawyer's Island. And by the way, get rid of it. One, Tom Sawyer as a novel it's American history and it's a classic and everyone should read it. It is not theme parkable, especially given the subject matter of Tom Sawyer and that whole series, right? And it has aged a little bit like milk. So you have to. Here's the thing: all art though needs to be judged based on the time it was made and the historical impact it has, right? It's a classic. You should read it in your literature class. Do we need an attraction and a theme park based around it? I'm good, thanks. So I'm happy to see Tom Sawyer's Island go. And at the same time, I understand why people are upset because we have like very little space in the park that's just sort of quiet and calm and not like foot traffic chaos, right? Like the Project Stardust stuff, removing all the benches and making people keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. This removal of like the peaceful quiet in the middle to fill in like Cars Land and this like forest of nonsense, whatever it is, looks like it's just turning the park into monetizing every square foot, which I get. I get. They're going to have shops and restaurants and rides as opposed to water, which is just for you to stand and enjoy and feel cool, right?
Yes.
But like, I think it's a good change. Mr. Disney himself said the park should always be evolving. I think to the flip of that, though, the park is constantly evolving to known IP as opposed to just new ideas. And I think if you want to have the conversation about mourning the real new creativity versus everything becoming an owned IP, that we can have as a debate, I think. Like, is that a good thing? Like, should the park be doing things like Frontierland or should they be doing Cars Land? So that's the kind of thing where I would actually really, I think that's a great topic for like unifying force or someone.
And
You
now
know?
look at Dave. He goes, "Oh, I
Yeah.
haven't been there in forever, but now that they're going to get rid of it, we got to
Yeah.
talk about it." You
Oh,
know?
that's perfectly fair. It's the same thing with Splash Mountain. I don't care. I don't care. And another one, it's the Chiadi Mundi thing, right? Like all the Splash Mountain fans come out of the woodwork. Which, by the way, that ride always did well, so it's not like it was a bad ride. But like the people who were like, "I'm gonna handcuff myself to the ride," do it. Have at it. Get evicted from Disney forever and end up in first Disney jail and then real jail, and then you're never allowed back in Disney. That sounds delightful for everyone. So have at it. I have no patience for anyone and their nonsense anymore.
So, John, John, I'm not even going to try and say your name. I think it's Galgano. Hopefully, I put the emphasis on the right syllable. But I tend to consume Star Wars on a couple different media levels. So I read books, which sometimes means I'm in my truck driving, so I'm listening to books. So when I say read, it could be an audible. And then I watch, Disney Plus, and then for some reason it's so much more. I can watch any Star Wars movie anytime I want because I have Disney Plus. But what do? When it comes on TBS or TNT, I have to watch it. When it's got commercials and I can't see it all the way through. But somewhere in the lines, I remember this story, and I don't know where it comes from, so I wish I could tell you, but it's out there somewhere. So.
Yeah, we can look it up. I'm sure we'll find it on the Wookiee. There's so many sources, and also this is why people get crazy about canon. Again, I'd say Star Wars gets revered in a way that other brands don't, and they're sort of held to like a higher level of scrutiny for their lore and everything else because people treat this shit like religion, and I think it's like really unhealthy. There's a phrase that's popped up in the last few years. One terminally online, which is for people who are like constantly on their phone and on the internet, and I've unfortunately sort of fallen into that trap, and I'm trying to break away from it. And my husband's always yelling at me for being on my phone too frequently, right? And I was like, stop, whatever. I need to go do my YouTube show. But like, there's another piece of it with the social media thing is and actors and everything where people are forming parasocial relationships with these like celebrities and whoever else on YouTube and everywhere else that people don't even know. It's like I don't. When you're going to bat for someone in the comments of some actor you've never met and they've never met you and you don't know the whole story, like I don't need you defending whoever anywhere, but because you've created this relationship with them in your mind, it's really damaging.
Psychopath.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Star Wars fans like this where but their parasocial relationship is to the franchise, and then they have their enemy list, and the enemy list is Disney or Kathleen Kennedy or just women. Like it's like as broad and crazy as that, right? Or younger fans even be like, oh, anyone who didn't see it in 1977 isn't a real fan. I was like, well, my parents met in 1979, so couldn't have happened. But like that's the thing where I don't understand how you get to that point, but it is a boil the frog situation, like where it just seems to get crazier and crazier a little bit every year.
It's funny because I have said, and I was there in '77. I can tell you, I was in the Charles. Oh yeah, I was in the Charles Street Theater in Baltimore, Maryland, and I watched it with my father, my Aunt Tracy, and her husband at the time, Dave.
And
And
that's awesome.
I
Yeah.
remember being there. That theater is no longer in existence; it's been torn down. But I actually remember seeing it in Baltimore. It was that summer, so it wasn't like I went out that weekend. But when it became big, my dad took me out to it. He was the my dad was a movie critic for his college newspaper, so he loved going to movies. He loved the independent movies, and I'd be like, not so much on the independent ones. Give me the big screen, the boom, the crash.
Popcorn. Yeah, when you're a kid, I don't want to go see the English patient or
Yeah,
some shit.
yeah.
Like, no. Yeah.
No, that's could talk about dreary and
It won
yeah,
Best
great
Picture,
movie,
which is
great
why it's on
story.
my brain recently. I just saw it on a listicle, and it's like, how'd these things win Best Picture? And English Patient was on that. I was like, yeah, people love a slow tragedy, slow burning tragedy. Yeah.
And then
Um,
talk about a course of history that is, twisted and turned and ends not in the way you would think it would, but the best of Maul.
yeah. He is our English patient. Um, so I do want to put up this one comment from Sherry, and then we can get on to the topic of the night. The hate for Kathleen infuriated me. It's because of her we have so much content. And Sherry, you're right. Like, she is the reason. She's the head of Lucasfilm. So while Dave Filoni, not our Dave O'Neill, that's Dave Filoni. But Dave Filoni, it gets a lot of the credit for the good stuff that happens in the Star Wars fandom. Kathleen often gets blamed for all of the problems. And now there is a legitimate discussion to have about whether Star Wars is doing things correctly or not, and what shows were announced that never came to be. We can make a list from Lando. Lando's the only one I can think of at the moment. There was the movie from Taika Waititi. There was a Ryan Johnson trilogy. You name it. They've announced a bunch of crap
Right.
they never made. Right.
Yeah.
That sounds like a studio head problem. Like, truly.
Don't announce it until you got it in a bag.
Yeah, like, let's film it first. That's why I kept joking about how Skeleton Crew isn't a thing. I like literally willed it into existence by fighting it on the internet, being like, it's not real. And then they find, oh, Rogue Squadron. There you
Rogue
go, Dave.
Squadron is a great one, Dave.
Yeah, I'm pissed about that one. Let me tell you.
You and me both.
I'm more of a like weird. I like the weird shit in Star Wars. I love like the Mortis arc of Clone Wars. That's what I tell people. Like, what's the type of Star Wars you love? Love Rebels, and then if you really want to understand what I like most about Star Wars, the Mortis arc of Clone Wars. Weird and wacky, and like redefines everything about the Force and all that kind of shit. Right? Rogue
Oh,
Squadron is super grounded and would be like the opposite of that. But I was so excited about that also because there will be 0.0 lightsabers in that movie. You know it. So it's going to be everyday people fighting a tyrannical government or whatever, um, trying to make things work with their little rogue squadron, right? The same way Rogue One worked because it was a bunch of like misfits trying to, battle the Empire. That's a great story. Everyone loves an underdog story, even when we know they're going to win. Like, we went into Rogue One with like the stakes couldn't have been lower. We know they get the plans, and all it comes down to is who dies and who doesn't. Like, they could have all lived, they could have all died. But like, it's a great movie.
Yeah, it was like the version of Titanic.
Yeah, exactly. We all know what happened.
My my favorite group of novels is the X-Wing series. I think that was, and I love that. I love the character of Wedge in that group of books. I hate the standing that he has now in the canon because the story of Wedge in the books is so much better. So I kind of, I would have loved to have seen, how they kind of steal from legends and bring it into
pull
pull it in. I would have loved for them to kind of really pull some Rogue from X-Wing series material to bring that into that movie. And look, it's a flip of the coin with Patty Jenkins because there's Wonder Woman and then there's Wonder Woman 1984.
84 is. Here's the thing. To sidestep for a second because we will get to Maul, I promise. I love the idea of Wonder Woman 1984. And the problem with that movie is that, like a lot of superhero movies at the time, it was overstuffed. We have two villains whose stories don't really intersect. Like, yes, they do technically, but like they don't have the same motivations at all, and they don't work together. It's basically two movies. It's Wonder Woman versus Cheetah, and then Wonder Woman versus Pedro Pascal, who's in a completely different movie. Let me tell you, it feels like that man was dropped into something that he was not told what it really was, because he's great, and then everything around him doesn't make any kind of sense. And then Chris Pine coming back, like, I love Chris Pine, and he's so good in that first movie. If you wanted to keep him, just don't do the time jump. Like, it's stupid the way they brought him in, and I don't know. Like, we could do a whole dissection on everything that DC did wrong, but guess what? It doesn't matter, because the new Superman movie comes out in a year. We're less than a year. We're 10 months away from Superman, what used to be called Superman Legacy, now just Superman 2025, July 2nd or July 4th or whatever it is. It's coming. And we'll have a new Wonder Woman at some point too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started on DC and their.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill got shafted.
Look, I like Henry Cavill. I will say they didn't give him a fair shot at being the greatest Superman of all time, because he's only got one standalone movie, and then he's like a glorified extra in one of the Justice Leagues, and he's like, I would say arguably like third build in even the first Justice League movie. Like, it's not his movie. Like, it's more of a Batman movie, even in Batman versus Superman. And
Yeah.
as much as Ben Affleck is going through it, man, he's very good as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like, there's something about that man where like he surprises you every now and then, and I was like, oh, he was kind of like made to do this. Like, I think he's one of the best Batman we've ever had. Is Ben Affleck.
Yeah, don't say that in front of Dave, but yes, I think he was actually really good. I would have loved to have given him an opportunity to play Batman. And there's that beginning of Batman, and then there's that kind of end of Batman, and he was kind of not the beginning. It was Jason Todd was dead by that point in time. As his costume was displayed in that movie. I always thought it was just absolutely stupid to take the Batman versus Superman arc and use it as a movie, because
it didn't make sense.
Most people, unless you're just a really avid Star Wars fan and avid DC fan, you didn't, your whole experience of Batman and Superman is these guys were good friends. They were buddies. They were so. What do you mean they're going to go against each other? It just didn't. It was like it played against what everybody was expecting, and some of these artistes, that are like, oh yeah, no, sometimes the art is not more important than the story.
Yeah, and here's the thing though. Those movies, for all the complaints, still made like $1 billion each. Like, most of them still did really well, and I think part of it was just the box office was booming for everything. And then it started falling apart. I think post Justice League and everything else. And look, I can't even get on the Whedon tangent. I'm still doing my Firefly rewatch, and I have so many mixed feelings. I actually really think I'm going to do something with Firefly. My husband and I are talking about maybe doing something on YouTube as like a test. Like, it's only 13 episodes. Could we just do a series for fun? It would be a fun little project for the two of us to actually do like a Firefly Revisited kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm really, really loving it. It's just I don't want it's bringing attention to any Whedon project just makes me feel icky.
Yes.
So, but he will not commit to Magicians, and that's my only other show that I want to talk about in depth is Magicians, because there's not enough wraparound content on Magicians. This is pre New Rock Stars and Screen Crush and all of those things. So, Dave O'Neill, will you watch Firefly or Magicians or both? And by the way, Keaton is a magical Batman and probably the Batman. If we're gonna pick one Batman, people can make the case for Adam West or Michael Keaton. I also think Christian Bale is amazing. I think Keaton is the man. Probably he's probably in the one spot. But yeah,
in '89, I mean, it was an amazing movie. I remember when it came out, and it was an amazing movie, and it was like, oh, this is cool. This is so much more. It was a little bit clown-esque, but it was definitely more Batman than anything else that had been put out. But I didn't realize how good he was until actually The Flash. Yeah, and I was like going back and seeing him as Batman again. I was like, yeah, he really is good.
Yeah, he's a great actor. If you've never seen Birdman, everyone do yourself a favor and watch that thing. It won Best Picture. At least I think it did. It certainly got nominated. And he was sort of the front runner for the Oscar that year for Best Actor, and he didn't win. It was Eddie Redmayne that year or whatever it was. I just watched a thing on this. But Birdman is wild and wacky and weird, and of course references him being Batman. Of course, it's so good. The cinematography is incredible. Like it's just one of those weird ass movies, but he's amazing in it. Um, my one other Batman that I want to shout out is Kevin Conroy. The voice of Batman from the animated series. And unbeknownst to me, for the longest time, like I didn't know he was gay until probably 10 years ago. It was one of those things where like I had no idea, and then he talked about it, how it shaped his um, portrayal of Bruce and everything, and the dual identity, double life, keeping things hidden, and like the toll it takes on you, because he was closeted for a very long time. Remember, he died at age 66 a few years ago, so he would have been 70. So he's two generations ahead of me basically. I'm 43. It's enough time to have like lived through AIDS and everything else while being even old. He would have been older than most of that going on and lived through everything else that followed. And that must have been fucking scary. Like, I like to think all the time that I would have been like a brave, like tough guy. And in 1969, during like the gay rights movement, I would have thrown a brick at Stonewall and punched a cop. I'd like to think I would have been that guy. And I sooner think that like 20-year-old me who's like 130 pounds would have just went running. Like, it's really hard to think like what that would have been like. But he seemed like he it was a hard for him to come to terms with everything, and so he kept it hidden for a very long time. But he brought that to the character, for sure. And I feel like people still hear his voice as Batman, like from all those seasons of animated series.
Yeah, he was amazing.
So good. Swinging back to our animated series now. We always do this. Oh my god, we're 37 minutes in. Let's try to
Now
let's
it's fun
pretend
to
to
talk about Rebels.
talk about Maul. Guys, I'm telling you, we really need like a general conversation show on the network where we could just do the news of the week and pop culture wraparound. I just can't commit to another show, because I would love to be in the one spot for something like that. It would be fun. I know they kind of do it on the watch along also. It sort of becomes like the weekly check-in. Mondays just feel like a natural like start to the week of like what's going on and what happened this weekend and all that crap. Especially after like a post con, because cons are always on the weekend. So like
Yeah.
someone's always coming back from something. Ashley's always working a show. I'm either working or attending a show. You're always going somewhere doing like. And then with Jeff, who by the way is taking a little vacation, he is always somewhere cool. When we do our pre-meet before we go live, Jeff usually has the story that blows us away every time. We're like, oh my god, we got to talk about that on air. Like it's and then it becomes like the major discussion of the episode, and we then have 20 minutes left to talk about the actual topic in the credits.
We always live vicariously through Jeff.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, he
know,
just falls into nonsense in the best way. He's Kramer. He's like real life Kramer.
yeah, he
Yep.
is.
All right, let's talk about Maul. So, to give everyone a little bit of just background on the character, one, obviously, we first met him in episode one, The Phantom Menace. He was the big bad, the looming big bad, played by Ray Park, who we will not be discussing after me saying his name, and that's it. He's having another meltdown on Instagram, and I feel bad for the man. And he is on some type of tour right now that I think he's like kind of barely showing up to. Par for the course with him. He's had a really, really tough go. I don't know what the latest is, and I don't want to really comment on it. But for our purposes, like Sam Witwer is actually really the Darth Maul that we know from Clone Wars, from Rebels. He does the voice in Solo. He's really sort of become almost like the owner of this character. And Sam portrays him in Rebels, which is the most important thing to this discussion. There's a few Rebels episodes that Maul appears in. It's actually like not that many. He's in A World Between Worlds in the archive footage. He's in Twin Sons, which is his final appearance as the character. We'll say his final living appearance chronologically. He's in Visions and Voices, Holocrons of Fate, Twilight of the Apprentice, both parts. And weirdly, he plays the Emperor in Siege of Lothal in the original airing. So it's and you know they go back and change that to Palpatine. But sorry, to Ian McDermott, but he originally did the Emperor, which was cool. But yeah, Maul doesn't have a lot of appearances in Rebels, but they're all super important. Twilight of the Apprentice, Holocrons of Fate, Visions and Voices, and Twin Sons, and like those are some of the heaviest of heavy hitting episodes in the whole franchise.
Well, I mean, he steals Kanan's eyesight and changes the whole context of Kanan as a Jedi. So I think it was, hypercritical there, and I love the way his relationship. You know what I really enjoy, though it's kind of weird, is the relationship between Ezra and Maul,
Mm-hmm.
my apprentice.
Yes, I love that. By the way, I'm no fool, but like I would totally sign up to be like team up with Darth Maul. Like I would be like, yes, this seems fun. This is gonna end terribly, but this
Yeah,
is gonna be so much fun. Like I have trouble saying no, and I say yes when I ought to say no is like a running gag of mine. And it's a song lyric, but it's the kind of thing where I would totally, if he was like, I need you to be my apprentice, I was like, that sounds great. Where are we off to next? What are we doing? We're gonna kill the Emperor. That sounds like it's gonna go swimmingly.
who's got bail money?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's your bad idea friend. Like this is very the angel devil literally of like Kanan and Maul up to like weigh those on your shoulder. I'm team Maul on this one. But his fatal mistake is the obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Ashley and I have joked many times we've done the mean girl thing where it's like, why are you so obsessed with me? Like if he weren't so obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he'd still be alive. Like he went looking for this man in Tatooine. Like, one, why is anyone going back to Tatooine? But like all you had to do was not go there. You wouldn't have gotten stabbed.
Well, I mean, you cut a man's torso off, and all of a sudden you kind of get obsessed with him.
Yeah, yeah, and but it was in the heat of battle. You tried to kill him, like he didn't throw the first punch. He didn't just like wrong you. You killed his master. He chopped you in half. But like you did kill lots of other people in the events of Phantom Menace and everything else. Like who started it? It started with Maul and Palpatine. Like this is their doing.
I think John's right, though. Every scene that this
Mm,
guy is in, he definitely steals the show.
yeah.
He becomes the, oh God, I want to watch Maul. What's he doing? I love that line where, you don't want to run into the dark sider. Well, then don't turn around, and there he is standing behind them.
Hmm.
What's his face? Big Rocky Cowboy. Um, I say that because he's got the big beard. Bendu.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When
Bendu.
Bender's like, well, if you don't want to see him, don't turn around.
Yeah. Ooh, look, he's got a diabolical presence at all times. Um, but he's also like kind of fun. Like the way he toys with everyone in Twilight of the Apprentice is awesome. Like he refers to Ahsoka as Lady Tano, which I just think is just it's so like formal, but also like dismissive of her actual title because she's not Master Tano, right? Like
She's
he's
not
like
Jedi. It's just late.
exactly. So she's Lady Tano. Um, and he's like a jerk, but in a way where it's like, oh, he's funny. I'd be friends with him. Like he's my brand of humor, you know. And he's constantly trying to manipulate Ezra, which Ezra's aware of, and is like, no, don't worry. Like lots of people try to manipulate me. Like, have you met Hondo? Like I'm gonna be a step ahead of you. It'll be fine. But Ezra met his match this time, right? He wasn't a step ahead. Yes, they teamed up temporarily, which I love in Twilight when it's the multi lightsaber fight when it's Kanan, Ahsoka, Ezra, and Maul against the fifth brother, the seventh sister, and the eighth brother. That lightsaber fight is one of the best. And
Oh
you think that like Maul is like, oh man, this is going great. Maul's on the right side. We know he's eventually, gonna chase down the holocron, and you have that moment where it's like, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, to quote Firefly. But when it happens, you're still pissed that you like literally didn't see it coming by that split second, and then you're blind. So there
yeah,
goes
yeah.
Kanan. Yeah,
Kanan's like, what? It's like I knew that was going to happen, but I just didn't see it coming.
yeah. I do want to put up on the screen Dave's comment about how it all really did start. Yeah, Maul tried to kill young Anakin. Jake Lloyd's running for his life from Ray Park on that floating little scooter or whatever, and Phantom Menace. Um, And so there we go. Like this is, and by the way, in that movie, I think Maul has, or Darth Maul at the time has like 5 speaking lines because it's all stunt work. Like that's
Yeah,
very much Ray's movie. It's all stunt and fighting, and I think Ray's in all of it. I don't even know if he has a stunt man. I think it's just him. But Peter, I forget his name. I'm gonna have to look it up.
yeah. I
Um,
can't remember who it
Sarah
was.
Fenifich. It's like something really weird. Does the lines in that movie, the few of them that there are, and then of course, when Clone Wars started, they brought in Sam Witwer to take over the character.
Yeah, and Sam's portrayal of Darth Maul, he's just a much more he's impressive in Phantom Menace because he's this force of nature. But then you get him in Clone Wars and Rebels, and what Sam does with him is just so much more entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be that physical presence. He needs to be more of a personality
Mm-hmm.
or a presence of personality. So that really played to Sam's skills.
Oh yeah. Sam's very charismatic. I don't if anyone ever has a chance to meet him at a convention. He's also a big Star Wars nerd, and a big nerd in general. So you can ask him a question, but prepare yourself, he will answer it. And he may take his time with it, which is amazing. So you might get a little mini TED talk. He actually has a big one about this episode that's featured in the graphic. He's
Oh
very
yeah,
famously put up his sort of dissection of that lightsaber fight and why it's brilliant. And I largely agree with
yeah.
everything he said. Like he gets it. The interesting thing about Sam is that Darth Maul was not the first voice that he did on the Clone Wars. So when he like first entered the scene doing the voice of the Mortis son, so he pops in Overlords and Altar of Mortis and Ghost of Mortis, right? The three-part Mortis arc. He's the voice of the son, and we always refer to him as the Mortis son. So it's clear. And then he comes back as Darth Maul not long after the following year. So they bring. I think they. It almost seems like the Mortis son was his like audition for Darth Maul, and they were like, we need someone who's got that like dark side, kind of seductive, trickery. Like he becomes like an intellectual villain on his return, and also like nuts when he first reappears, right? Like because he's like cray cray from having been cut in half and living in the trash with the spider legs. And then he sort of gets it back together after Mother Talzin like repairs him, right? We get a lot of magic and a lot of hand waving. Like you want to talk about messing with canon. Like that man was dead, and now Mother Talzin was like, "Don't worry, black magic, woo, spider legs, go, yeah, Inspector Gadget, we're on the way." And it works. We didn't. I mean, some people cared, some people were pissed, but like,
The pen is mightier than the sword.
you know what? I, I sort of like that death means something when it happens, and we shouldn't be bringing back characters who die. But like bringing back Darth Maul was a good move. Like Maul is an excellent villain throughout the Clone Wars. He appears in multiple episodes, and of course has the big, siege of Mandalore
And Lord, oh my
at the
gosh.
end. Yeah, that whole four-parter is like unbelievable. Look, and that whole Mandalore arc where he takes over Mandalore, right? I mean, the Lawless is what's the IMDb on the Lawless? I want to say it's like a 9.8 or something. The Lawless, where's the rank? I'm looking 9.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and IMDb hates everything. Those scores are always lower than Rotten Tomatoes and everything. 9.7, like that's Maul at his mauliest. Killing Duchess Satine, tormenting Obi-Wan. He barely cares to rule Mandalore. He just wants to get revenge on Obi-Wan, and he like stabs his girlfriend. I was like, you have a whole planet to run. We got to talk infrastructure, sir, and squashing the civil war and what we're gonna do with like the citizens. But he's like, I'm busy.
I
He's
don't
got it.
care.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a grudge. I got an axe to grind. I'm going to do it.
Exactly. It's
And
his downfall.
his battle with Ahsoka. I mean, he was a perfect
Mm,
opponent for Ahsoka.
yep. I'm gonna put up
You know,
John's comment over here.
he was a fallen Sith Lord, and she's a fallen Jedi, so it worked out both.
Yeah, I like that he's a former Sith, she's a former Jedi, but they are probably the best representations of the dark
Of
side and the
both.
light side. Yeah, like they really show you don't have to be part of the organization to understand how to tap into the Force and to like properly wield dark side and light side. And I think that fight that they did, and by the way, Ray Park was actually involved in that fight. He did the mocap along with Lauren Mary Kim, who did the mocap
Yes,
for Ahsoka, who I hope everyone got to meet Lauren Mary Kim
I
at the
did.
family vacation. You got to meet her, right, Skip?
Yes, I did. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes.
Yeah. Um,
She had to look at my shirt very closely.
yeah. Yes. um, I was, I forget if, I know we took some pictures. We're starting to roll out now some of the interviews from the family vacation and the
I
what are
saw
we
Misty
calling it, the hot
Rose.
seat Mondays. Yeah, we definitely have one with Lauren Mary Kim. Yeah, we just had one come out today.
Misty
Galen
Roses.
Howard's last word was last week, and yeah, Misty Roses was just today. So yeah, I think there's 3 or 4 of them out now, which is very exciting. But eventually, we get to Lauren Mary Kim's. We talk extensively about Ahsoka, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
very
was
cool.
that was and the fact that they would go through the mocap to get an animated scene
Yeah.
was their dedication to making that look about as cool as it could.
It's a great send off. I say it all the time that like if it weren't for COVID, I suspect they're going to put that in theaters, like as a limited release, like short period of time, not spend a lot of money on marketing. But it seems like they poured money into that finale of the Clone Wars. That four-parter was unreal. Sam really delivered. I gotta tell you, Ashley delivered too. Well, I think we don't always talk about Ashley delivering because every time she's doing it, she's just doing it right. Like she's Ahsoka. She created the character. Like she
Yeah,
is Ahsoka. And she always, always, always delivers. And she's also there all the time. She's in most episodes of the Clone Wars.
she
Whereas like
developed
Sam pops
Ahsoka.
in, he's the special guest, so he gets the extra attention sometimes.
Ashley developed Ahsoka. Ahsoka went from a teenager to, you
Hmm.
know, an adult inside of Ashley's mind and brain and development. I don't have anything against Rosario. I've met her several times. I think that she's great for the Star Wars universe. But there's something about Ashley's Ahsoka, and it's not necessarily Ashley. It's just what they did with the writing and the and development of the character at that time that I just enjoy a little bit more of that than I do of the
Hmm.
adult Ahsoka that we're getting now. I would
Yeah.
like to see more of that kind of introspective um, uh, um, Ahsoka, and hopefully we'll get that in season 2.
Yeah. Well, we are greenlit for season 2, which is very exciting. And Dave has a
Yeah,
thought here that I want to pull
I
this
don't think it's
thread
happening.
on that I think could happen in season 2, or as another part of The Mandalorian or one of the movies. So, if Moff Gideon has any ties to Maul from the time that Maul ruled over Mandalore, remember he had all of his followers wearing horns on their helmet. And there was actually a concern that the armorer might have been part of his group because she has horns on her helmet. And you have to wonder if it's almost like one of those symbols that gets passed down. It would only be a couple generations, right? We're talking about like 40 years or something, which in the history of Mandalore is like not long at all. Mandalore's been around forever. But like if you were part of like the Maul crew, and there's one other woman character in the Clone Wars voiced by Vanessa Marshall, who's a woman that has spikes on her helmet and has some dialogue with Maul in the finale. It's very cool. Yeah, the Maul DeLoreans, John. I love that. Um, yeah, that's good times. If we got to see them in another season of Maul or even discussed in Ahsoka, I actually thought one of the things that would have been great to see in the Ahsoka show is like I'd love for Ahsoka to have a conversation with Maul. There wasn't room for that in season 1 with everything else going on, but like she should commune with him for a second, just because like he's dead now. Like go have a world between worlds situation conversation with him. I think that could be interesting. But there's so much to do there. We got to find our way to Mortis. We got to wrap up like the arc with Balin Skull. They got to get back to the known galaxy. Ezra has to tell everyone what the f is going on. Like there's just so much to do. We have to get Senator Giono back and punched in the face. Like there's just a lot. Nelson Lee's gonna have to learn how to take a punch. It's gonna be it's gonna be a whole thing.
Nice guy. I told him,
He's so nice. I
I
love
said,
him.
I love hating you.
That's he was actually, and I think I've said this on the show already, one of the best interviews I did when I was out there at the event. He and Christopher Sean were so, so, so fun. So
Right.
I can't wait for that full version to land because, they're in we have the 30-minute like general recap of the event and it's got little splices from everyone mixed in. But Chris and Nelson were a fire interview. Like they were just awesome. And then Nelson spent some time like fake fighting with Chopper. So there's all these photos of him. If you haven't seen it on the Facebook page, everyone go give a look to the Facebook page if you haven't been on in a while and take a look at all the photos from the vacation. But yeah, Nelson versus Chopper. There were a couple where he's like fake boxing him. It's good stuff.
I love me some
Yeah.
psychopathic Chopper.
Yeah, yeah, Chopper's the best. We did a best of Chopper too, and it was basically like Ashley's favorite thing in the world, and it's just Chopper killing people. Um, Yeah, his body count was out of control.
Yeah.
Sam Witwer, or I should say Maul, on the other hand, he does some good killing too. Like in Twilight of the Apprentice, I think some of his best moments, as we think of like what's really the best moments of Maul, Blinding Kanan is like the winner for the series because that sets off everything. And getting Ezra then the holocron, which makes Ezra like dark side crazy for a little while. Good
Yeah.
stuff. The lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi and the whole chase down, that whole episode, Twin Suns, is unreal. But I also think we like overlook the fact that he killed the seventh sister with the video game move, where you like grab her like this to force hold, and then you throw the lightsaber. Like that's out of one of the video games, and he killed poor Sarah Michelle. Doesn't really stand a chance. And then fifth brother is killed by Ahsoka with an assist from Maul, or other way around. So yeah, Ahsoka gets a half credit kill on that one, but like Maul takes down 5 and 7, and then 8 goes flying off with his non-functioning like helicopter blade. So we'll call that a death too.
Yeah, sort of falling to his death. That we don't really see it, but
yeah,
it's like, okay.
Jedi are supposed to be able to like jump and fall really well, though. Like unless you have terrible knees and you blow a knee out, like you should be fine. Like I don't know.
Maul's just an intriguing character study.
Yeah, what I think the big lesson that I take away from him is obsession is one of the many paths of the dark side, but obsessing over the wrong thing will be your downfall. Like his obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of those tales you're supposed to learn from, and it's supposed to be a cautionary tale. And I think it's very heavy-handed, but very obvious. But also, like it is a kid show. You have to remind ourselves of Star Wars. Like we're telling tales for 12-year-olds. The cautionary of cautionary tales is like whatever revenge you think you need to get over immediately and focus on yourself. Because he would still be alive if he were not on Tatooine. And he can go run Crimson Dawn. He's got all sorts of cool stuff in the hopper. He's working with Kira, that's the one. See, these things don't leave an impression on me. Isn't that terrible? We're taking in too much content. I can't remember names at this point. He and Kira could be running like a really like successful, we'll say, import-export business.
Yes.
Right? Is that not enough?
Well, the other really intriguing aspect of Maul that I love is that he knows what Palpatine's doing. He knows what Sidious's plan is.
Mm-hmm.
He's known from the get-go. He started with him, and he's helping out, and he knows. And throughout the whole thing, he doesn't disclose to the Jedi what the true plan is.
Mm-hmm.
Until really the end, he's kind of throwing Ahsoka hints during season 7. At the end of season 7, he's throwing her hints. This is what he's been planning all along. This is what is going to happen. He's, oh my gosh, he's doing it. Here he goes. And
it's as it's happening, as it's too late, and he still wasn't even fully direct. He was mostly using it to manipulate Ahsoka, being like, it's Anakin. Wouldn't you try to save Anakin? You already abandoned him once, that kind of thing, right? He loves to emotionally manipulate. He's so good at it. He's like the master class on emotional manipulation, Maul, while also being blind to his own, like, sort of mental health issues, I would say. He's the obsessive personality disorder happening.
Personality dysfunction.
Yeah, it's not great. And also, like, he's got a lot of anger, like too much. Like he needs some therapy, man. If we could just take that down, I'm telling you, successful shipping, import, export, maybe New York sanitation, Dave, wherever he's going to end up working. He would be very good. People see him as a natural leader. There were Mandalorians who adjusted their armor that, as we know, was passed down for generations. That Beskar came from someone's great grandfather or grandmother, right? They're all very egalitarian. And these men and women put fucking horns on their armor to rally behind Maul because he had the Darksaber, which, by the way, the Darksaber then comes back in visions and voices. This man's so connected to the Darksaber. It's to Obi-Wan Kenobi, knowing Palpatine's situation, the fight with Ahsoka, that he's everywhere. It's in like the biggest moments. But when people are like, hey, something huge is happening, Maul needs to be parachuted into it.
Excellent. But, I love Sam's explanation of that lightsaber battle with Obi-Wan. That let me change. Okay, let me give you the old Obi-Wan. Let me give you let me give you Qui-Gon's, and then let me just boom, done.
Yeah, there's a lightsaber.
And I love Sam's. It's been told, I think, through Ashley Eckstein and through Sam about that scene where they're shooting Anakin, meeting Shmi as a Force ghost and introducing his wife, and and Sam has a little pause and goes, I'm sorry, but they've already met. And you're like, what?
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah,
He knows it.
Phantom Menace and Ashley Eckstein has been quoted saying, "Dang, I've never seen anybody out Dave Filoni, Dave."
He out Filoni. Um, I'm gonna put a link. Hopefully this doesn't crash anything. This happens sometimes if you put a link somewhere. There's a little YouTube short, but I'm sure it could take us to um, a larger video of Sam talking about the lightsaber fight. It's the quick version. There is a long version because it is Sam. There's always a long version, which is great. He knows his stuff. He is the man when it comes to this kind of thing. And I appreciate that he is like so openly a nerd. Um, as someone who is 43, I remember a time where like being nerdy and geeky and being super passionate about this kind of stuff was like not only not cool, but people like actively violently like thought less of you because of it. Like my comic book collecting in like middle school and junior high was like really looked down upon.
Oh
And
yeah.
except when like Death of Superman happened, when a lot of people got into it for a minute, right? But like Sam has made a career of like being like a super nerd, super geek, while also being like a sexy hot guy doing sexy hot guy things on TV shows, right? Like he's like, hey guys, you can do both.
Well, I love all the memes the video memes that they do where the women go, oh, you want to find a keeper, a good one, and they're pointing it to all the nerds. Like the nerds have got their second coming.
Yeah.
They can find the best partners because they're nerds and they won't cheat on you and they won't mistreat you because they're too busy putting their Legos together.
I was thinking of that exact thing. They were like, I'm 100% certain my husband's not cheating on me, and here's how I know. And the woman goes downstairs to the basement, and he had all this Lego, and he was in the middle of building one right now. And she's like, we're good. She's like, it's Saturday night. And I was like, oh my god. Yeah, I was like, okay, that's a lot. I don't need a room full of Lego. But yeah, like that's good. And I think with the internet, right, it's connected all of us. We were saying, like this group has given us, a lot of us, the tribe we didn't have beforehand. I have a few different tribes. There's like my fraternity brothers, there's the gays, there's these Star Wars nerds. Every now and then there's like an intersection there as well, which is always fun. But like it definitely feels like various circles. Yeah, there we go, I got the triangle. So yeah, this group is like I think for a lot of people, like the core of like who we wish were all here in high school with us at the same time. We were probably watching, one of these geeky shows. Actually, I'm gonna put Dave's comment up too. Yeah, Cavill's the same way. He's like building computers and playing D&D and painting little figurines, and he'll go on these talk shows, and people like try to make fun of him, sort of. Like you could tell that like Jimmy Fallon is trying to jab at him, being like, "So I hear you like build computers, meh. Like aren't you a nerd?" And meanwhile, Henry Cavill is like way hotter than Jimmy Fallon, and got huge muscles and could like crush him.
Looking at me?
Yeah, and at the same time, he's like, yeah, it's really awesome, and he's talking very specifically, and you could see when people are like trying to poke you about something that they think you should be embarrassed about, and instead you're like, this is awesome, like let me tell you all about it. Like he's that, and so you can't embarrass someone if they don't have that shame about what they're doing.
And who's going to embarrass Cavill? I mean,
Exactly. There's no way.
The man's like a Greek goddess,
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really watch The Witcher, but I saw all the memes. And it was like, I watched The Witcher for the plot. And then they show a picture of him in the hot tub, and it was like the plot. And I was like, yep, I know plenty of gays who are just like, they're looking at the YouTube compilation of Henry Cavill shirtless from that show, right? Like, by the way, I don't know what the fuck happened in Witcher. I tried to watch that first season, and I think it was during COVID of some type where I was like home on a Saturday and I watched it straight through, and it didn't make a lick of sense, and it's out of order. And then someone put up a thing online where you had to like follow the map of like the way the timelines intersect. And I was like, what is this geometry problem in front of me? This algebra of time and I was like, I don't care enough. And I understand that The Witcher is like a really deep lore kind of series, but I was like, I really thought it was just going to be Henry Cavill like being hot, like fighting monsters. Like I really thought it was going to be like Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, but for like grown up a little. right? And when the toss a coin at your Witcher song became like a meme and like was everywhere, I was like, oh, how fun. I'm gonna go watch the show now. And then I was like, this is terrible. Like, this is so hard to watch. Like, it's so complicated. I don't know who any of these people are. Why is no one saying a character name? Say the character name out loud, like 7 times an episode. Like, you have to do that. But then it doesn't matter because we never see them again because everyone's in one episode. I was so mad by the time I was done with that season. I was like, this is awful. But Henry Cavill's great.
Do you remember seeing him in The Count of Monte Cristo?
No, I didn't watch that. No.
Oh my god, I love that
He's
movie.
in like a Hellraiser though, in like some club scene, which is also a meme, for different reasons that we won't discuss on our very family-friendly channel. But like the
Really?
Hellraiser series is garbage. But he's one of his earlier roles, is that. But I don't know what he's doing next. He's got something in the hopper that he's
The Highlander.
That's what it is. I knew he was training for something, and I'm thinking like, what could you possibly need to train for based on the way you look now? But it was specifically sword
Big
fighting.
swords.
Yeah,
Yep.
the sword stuff.
He's got to
So
start chopping heads off.
here's the thing. I'm of the age where like I was young when Highlander came out, and I kind of didn't love it. And then there's like a bunch of sequels apparently. But the joke is that there can only be one, and really the first one is the only movie that matters, right? Like I don't know about the series well enough to care that there's going to be a TV show. But if it gets good ratings or gets renewed for a season 2, maybe I'll watch. Like that's kind of where I am with my geeky like sort of barometer of whether I'm going to tune into something, because as part of my job, I need to stay up on like all things pop culture, but I also like can't sit here and consume everything because there isn't enough time, and I need to pay attention to my own licenses. So like I was watching Unicorn Academy on Netflix because that's one of our newest licenses, and there isn't like wraparound content for like a girl's cartoon. So I actually have to like watch the thing, which is fine. It's actually like a very good show, and the lore is great, and the voice acting is terrific, and it's colorful and fun, and I understand the show. But like that takes up a few hours of your time, and that's probably the duration of like a movie that I could have watched, right? But instead, I watched Unicorn Academy, the first 4 episodes, which by the way is very good. If anyone has nieces out there, and I'm not just saying that because I have Halloween costumes to sell you, like it's actually a good show. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Not just because I got to sell you some costumes, but
yeah, fully above board. I'm very. I'll tell you when I want you to buy something. But in all seriousness, it's like a very good show. I was shocked. Like I saw the sizzle and I was like, oh, this looks really good. But trailers lie now. So I've seen a lot of great trailers for crappy movies. I've watched a lot of bad movies in the past 2 years, as I'm sure you have as well. And some of the trailers were great. But like Unicorn Academy is like shockingly good, you guys. So tell your nieces and your daughters and whatever kids you have that are under the age of 12. I think it's really like 7 to 10 is sort of the sweet spot there. But yeah, it's fun. All right, coming back to our animation, we've barely covered Maul. This poor man, he's a guest star. He's like barely a blip in his own episode. He is a special guest though. They don't overuse him. As I was looking through the list again, even in Clone Wars, I'm going to read it out again. Again, Sam comes in as the Mortis son in the Mortis arc, right? So Overlords, Altar of Mortis, and Ghost of Mortis. But then he comes back as Maul, Darth Maul, in Brothers, and then Revenge, Revival, and Eminence, that whole thing. Shades of Reason, The Lawless. Like, come on, The Lawless is, if you're going to watch one episode of Clone Wars, it's The Lawless. Together Again, Old Friends Not Forgotten, The Phantom Apprentice, Shattered, and Victory and Death. So those last 4, Victory and Death, Shattered, Phantom Apprentice, and Old Friends Not Forgotten, that's the Siege of Mandalore. Those 4 episodes right there.
Shattered.
And they are unreal.
Must watch
right?
TV.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And yes, we will see him again on Clone Wars Revisited. Thank you for mentioning it, Dave. So we are going to cover him extensively in the episodes here. And let me tell you, when we get to Mortis, I am going to be insufferable. I love those episodes. I love the father, the son, the daughter. I love everything about that time period. I love all the actors. I think Adrienne Wilkinson is like spectacular as the daughter. I love what the implications are with Ahsoka. I love everything about the Mortis arc, and it's super controversial. But I think it's some of the best weirdest shit in all of Star Wars. So I'm down for it.
Ashley constantly, if you ask her what's your favorite story arc, and she will tell you the Mortis arc. So Matt Launter and James Arnold Taylor, it was just a really incredible story arc.
Yeah, and all of them deliver too, and it is core cast, right? It is.
It's still very open to interpretation. I think that's probably some of the best part of it, is that you can interpret that differently. Ahsoka dies, and
she did die. She died, but I guess she died in that dimension. Does death mean the same thing? they were only gone a split second, according to Rex, right? They were like, "Oh, we lost you there for a second." They were gone for days in their actual adventure, and then so this is like the perfect encapsulation of what Star Wars is, right? Like things exist on different planes of existence, space and time, the world between worlds, et cetera, et cetera. So freaky force shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
John, when like when freaky force shit first became a thing, when Jamie first said that, I was like, "Oh, that's gold. Freaky force shit. We're gonna say it all the time." And then we put it on a shirt. So we're leaning in on that, and that Mortis arc is probably the freakiest of the freaky
I
force
gotta
shit.
get that shirt. I don't have that one. Freaky Force shit. That's a must.
We need to do something with the. I don't know how much we can do character silos. We did it for Rebels, but like if we could do the father, the son, and the daughter, and something around there being like the freakiest force shit, like
Yeah.
that would be great. I would have Sam sign something like that. Like that would be very cool. I don't know if he's on the circuit at the moment, but James and like you said, James, Ashley, and Matt seem to be everywhere
Oh no,
right
no,
now.
no. Sam's been. In fact, there were a couple times I think I saw. I think I want to say I saw Sam and Ashley and James out, and Matt was
Ooh.
home.
Hmm. Matt, they like to roam as a
Put them,
trio.
the three of them together.
Yeah, the three of them together must book. I mean, they all do well on their own, but if you get the three of them together, people are gonna. It's the holy trinity of the
Yeah.
animated series. Like,
And you
um,
throw D in there, and it's like,
yeah,
oh shit.
yeah. Oh, so I met someone through, and this comes back to the circles of friends. The fraternity brothers had a party, and my fraternity brother's wife has a group of she's a dancer, and so she has a bunch of dancer friends. So all her gay friends who are dancers were there, and then so fraternity brothers, this group, and then it turns out that guy, one of the guys in the group, is another big nerd and like works on something Disney related and knew D. Bradley Baker. So the Star Wars connection came in, and it was the kind of thing where I was like, even here, like multiple degrees of separation, it comes back like someone know you're in the you find someone in your industry. And I was like, how? Through like multiple degrees of separation, and so I was like, D. Bradley Baker's kind of everywhere too, right? And if you meet him, you have to ask him to do the Perry the Platypus, the little sound that I can't do, his little party trick. That is the best. Hicks is looking for attention over here, so I'm leaning over.
Yeah,
He's
Sherry's.
back. He's back, and he needs more petting.
She's seen Matt without Ashley and James, but he was also with Sam. So yeah, they're mixing them up. I think and I don't know if somebody's doing that on purpose or if like for instance, Matt's got stuff going on with Angie and Ken, or where he's not able to show up or what.
Yeah, and I know Matt was doing something on screen that he was filming. I can't remember because he had dyed his hair for something. And I know James is always gigging, like he's constantly
God,
recording
he's got
something.
a million voices.
Yeah, always working. And then Ashley runs her universe, right? So she hasn't done a ton of media as of late, but she still runs everything her universe, that's a full-time job. So I was surprised that she was doing as much convention appearance work, because I'm sure she has like actual like executives and employees doing a lot of her universe
Oh,
stuff.
she
But
sold it.
yeah.
You know that
Oh yeah, no,
she.
the Port of Hot Topic. Yeah. Yeah, but they kept her on, and her husband. I mean, they
Yeah.
founded the company. So last I checked, her Dave, which it's fun. So I think I've mentioned this. So David Eckstein, most people, there are people who follow baseball in here. He is
MVP
not.
World Series.
Yes, that's what's so crazy. He's not just a baseball player.
He's a
He's
really good baseball player.
an excellent baseball player. World Series MVP David Eckstein. Now,
Yes.
I did not know this. And I worked at Topps, the trading card company, and I'm talking something, something. I'm mentioning something about Ashley Eckstein, and they're like, "Oh, Eckstein, any relation to David?" And I was like, "Oh, I think her husband's name is David. Yeah, David Eckstein. Actually, I think he plays baseball." I was like, "That's right. Yeah, David Eckstein. Yeah, that's Ashley's husband." And they're like, "What do you mean Ashley's husband? That man is a MVP from the World Series." And I was like, "Say what now?" And then they're like, "Who's this Ashley person? David's wife?" And I was like, "She is Ahsoka Tano." Like it was one of those where like we were coming from like completely different spaces of like
Like,
no
I think
one knew in the building
the
that these
connection.
people were married. And I'm like, do we send their cards to different places? Turns out we did. They had different agents. So like there was not even like a shared address that like the cards were going to for signings and stuff. But like so the sports people didn't know Ashley. I didn't know David. And then I finally met David. And of course he's like delightful. He's like the
Oh,
best. And
it was
yeah.
funny, she would. I first met her at Galaxy Con in Raleigh, and David was at all of her conventions, and I would see him, and I would say hi to him, and hey man, how's it going? Hey, and he'd
Mhm.
see me and recognize me, and
Yeah.
and
Both of them have photographic memories. It is unreal. They know
yeah,
every name of every person they've ever met. I'm telling you, they have implants like Lobot. Like it is something. They're both, and but that's also like I think legitimately comes from a place of caring where they're like
oh yeah,
people will appreciate that we remember their names. It's the least we can do. And I'm thinking I can't remember anyone's name even if I meet you 15 times. I will remember how we know each other or where we met. I will not remember your name. It is terrible because I go to so many conventions and you meet people for like a minute and you have like a full on conversation and all I hear is hi, my name is like that, like straight, like just right in, not even
yeah.
in
You
the
know the
ear. It doesn't
conversation
even
you had.
make it.
I can't remember the name.
Exactly. I remember when I met you and you were wearing this and we talked about that and I'm like, tell me your name again. Yeah, it's
Ashley
really.
has that. Ashley had. I'd seen Ashley in London at Celebration, and she seen me enough by then. She knew my name, and she said, "Well, how are you doing?" And I was telling her about my mother, who was ill at the time, and then she saw. She. It was funny because I had seen her, and she goes, when. And this is what blew my mind too. She goes, "You always have the nicest comments online when you
Oh.
respond." And I was like, "Well, thank you." And so I was like, "Okay, that's interesting that she remembers those things." And then I saw her. So I saw her in London. Told her about my mom. We were just talking, and then I saw her in last March, this March, um, in Richmond, and she, mom had passed January 1st, and she goes, and she saw me, and we were doing a photo op, and she goes, "How you doing, Skip?" And she'd
Oh.
known that my mom had passed, and it was the first time that it had like I'd been very stoic about my mom. I had cared for her during her passing, so I was very all right with her passing. And Ashley was the first time that somebody said something to me about my mom that made me go back and choked me up, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh," So
Yep, that's how they are, and you can't fake that. You can't.
no,
Like they are some of the most genuine people. James Arnold Taylor is the same way. He's just like genuinely a good person and cares about, and so does his wife. They're both just tremendous people. They're in Nashville now, I think. So
yeah,
I'm
well,
pretty sure
they've
they're gonna be at ICCC, right? I
yeah,
think.
that is a good question.
Remember?
I have not looked at that, but yeah, James lives just down the street from Matt. I've
Oh, I
heard
didn't
them
realize
talk.
that.
Oh yeah, they just oh yeah, Matt and I live just down the street from each other.
That's amazing. Oh, I would be over there like being like, boys, we need to talk Star Wars and like get out of my house. So 'cause
They'd be like, dude, we do this all day long.
exactly. They're
I
they're
talked to
both
Matt
really.
about Matt bought a house. Him and his wife bought a house in Ohio, and they're remodeling it.
Oh,
And so every time I see him, we get talking about his house, and he'll post some stuff about it, and I'm always commenting about the tile or the the trim or something, and they'll ask these like very casual questions about something that they're doing, and I always give these most very in-depth, detailed questions because
mhm.
I'm like, yeah, I'm nerding out on the construction stuff.
Yeah, I'm not capable of helping in any way, shape, or form. My parents, I think I was telling you, my mom and dad sold my childhood home, their house that they lived in since I was a baby, basically. The sister I grew up in, my sister grew up in. My grandmother passed away back in 2020. And so they've been using the last few years to like get everything sorted and sort of mentally prepare for their next move because dad is 16, he just turned 70. Mom is 67 and they want to be closer to the grandkids. So my sister lives in Randolph, New Jersey. They were living in Queens. They sold the house. They moved into the new house. Everything's moved in now. The furniture's delivered, and boxes have been delivered. The movers brought everything. They painted. They did like some minor work. But like it kind of went on, and it is exhausting. And I gotta tell you, we did almost nothing to sell the house and almost nothing to move into this house. And I still every day would come home and like bang my head against the floor. Like it's just so much paperwork and so time consuming. And then things change. So like this house that they owned for 40 years, like obviously codes change with all things housing, and so like we didn't have a fire
Oh yeah.
door in the basement, and so I was like, oh, that's a violation, like you need to do that. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what, like we're selling the house as is, like why and by the way, we should have had a fire door in the basement, but like no one's
Which
inspecting this house, like, you know.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but generally, they usually grandfather. You have a
Oh
house
yeah,
that was
yeah.
built in the '60s. You don't have to bring it up to code because that was the code that it was built on.
Yes, I think in this case, like it became one of those where it's like, can we not have any violations as someone new is moving in? And we decided to just take care of some stuff. So I also think like we probably should have had a fire door for the last 20 years. And they did have to do something new with like the gas meter, like this kind of garbage where, and then a pole has to go up in front of it so you can't crash your car into the and explode the house. I was like, oh, that all makes a lot of sense, but I have to do that. That's the kind of thing that would like sent me, and I'm like, oh my god, if I have to talk to one more person on the phone about, because it's bureaucracy, it's like city bureaucracy, right? So at one point like the gas is turned off for like 2 days or whatever it is. So I'm at work and my husband's just texting me, he's like, your mom and dad are here, and because they were coming over to shower and do a bunch of other stuff, and he's just texting me like the play-by-play, and he's like, your mom's on the phone with someone on speakerphone and she's yelling. And I'm like, I'm gonna have a panic attack at work. Like, call me when they leave. Like, I can't be here as this
Yeah,
is happening.
you go through
Yeah,
that.
yeah. You've been through all that, right? But like,
Oh, yeah.
it's done now. It's sorted, and I will say I'm very lucky with my mom and dad that the spare bedroom that they have. They've got the ensuite on the first floor, the bedroom on the first floor, all that kind of stuff. But the spare bedrooms are upstairs. Um, so so Sherry, there was no bedroom in the basement, but it was a mostly finished basement, and the oil burner is down there, and um, I couldn't even tell you the specifics because at some point I'm like a surrenderer on this kind of stuff. I was like, if they say we need to do it, just do it. Like it takes longer to fight it, and you don't want to be wrong in the end. Just like deal with it. Like it's not a big deal. And I think a fire door actually makes a lot of sense. So just put it in anyway. But the new house has the two spare bedrooms upstairs, and one of them is for my nieces, the grandkids, and they picked the color, and it's like a pink purple kind of thing. And then they painted the other room like a dark blue, and they got all these Star Wars decals that they're going to put up on the wall because it is our spare bedroom from when my husband and I come over. And I'm like, and your other guests are also going to stay in this room. Like, do they want to be surrounded by Star Wars decals? Because I don't even want to be surrounded by Star Wars decals. But like, it's that like they're very loving and attentive, and at the same time I'm like, if I have to come over and even open a box, I'm gonna throw it into the street. Like I can't do any more tasks related to this damn house, but they're
I built
largely settled. So
I built my wife a house, then I built my
mm,
mother a house, and then I
mm,
built my sister a house.
mm,
I'm not building any more
no,
houses for any family members. They're all done. It's over
no,
with.
no. I got my dad an Omaha steak delivery for his birthday, and I took my mom to a Broadway show. I was like, no, I can't imagine building a house. No, there's no way. No way. There's
I
absolutely
was
no
like,
way.
my mother was like, she comes into her house and it's been framed and I'm not there, and she's like, why did you turn my house this way? And I went, okay. I said, Mom, are you in the house? She's like, yeah, I'm in the house. I said, okay, go into your master bedroom. I said, now look out the window. I said, tell me what you see. She goes, I see the mountains. I turned
Mhm.
the house so that it wouldn't be looking directly at mine. I said, now do me a favor, go into the dining room, and there's two sets of windows in the dining room. I said, what do you see? She goes, mountains. I said, in both sets? She goes, yeah. I said, how about the living room? Do you see the mountains out there? Yeah, I see the mountains out there. I said, okay, enough said. Bye.
Yeah, yeah. Goodbye.
I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done.
and I feel
Don't
you.
question my
Every now and then, my cell phone seems to slip into airplane mode, because I'm really just like, I can't with this nonsense. But here's the good news. Mom and dad are 5 minutes from my sister. So and this is brand new. And my sister was already the hub anyway for all things. She's got the grandkids.
right.
And I'm the like I shouldn't say irresponsible. I'm the one who's, yes, I'm 43, but I behave like I'm 19. Like my weekend was the party in Nyack with the fraternity brothers. But I came from Fire Island that morning because I went out there the day before to have we'll say a day trip, but it was like an overnighter to party in Fire Island one last time before the summer's over. And then, by the way, we're going to Asbury next weekend. Like I can't stop myself. Like I just need to be doing right.
You're the social butterfly.
Yeah, and after the party in Nyack, one of my fraternity brothers who came with me to the party, he and I went out in the city afterwards. So we were out really late. So today has been like a struggle. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some stuff done around the apartment. I didn't do anything. Like this was yeah, I slept in is what I'll say. Sherry, if you are dealing with your brother's house, talk to Skip. Skip, I don't know if you charge a consulting fee, but he is the man with the plan. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the time. We are way over. We got real chatty. We love Maul. Um,
Yeah, Paul's
he's
great. The
great. He's
best of
great. He's
all.
terrific. Everyone knows he's terrific. So by the way, a reminder to everyone, Ashley will be back. This is not a permanent two-man job over here. She just took the night off, but she's doing fine. But she will be back next week for our Rebel Shorts rewatch, which I shouldn't even call it a rewatch. I haven't seen them in so long. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, do I rewatch them for the first time in a while with everyone? So they're like kind of fresh. Like, I think I'm going to do that where I don't have any, like, usually I go in and I know every minute of the episode and like all that kind of stuff. But I think next week is going to be just like, we'll wing it a little bit on the Rebels shorts.
Sure, it comes out just to see where we're going to go
Yeah.
this week.
Sherry, I'm going to put up your comment because, like, I think this is how we're going to run Clone Wars too. Clone Wars is 7 seasons of insane nonsense, like, and political intrigue and drama and the return of Maul and like all sorts of crazy shit. So we will absolutely not be on topic at any point. We will go in not chronological. We will go in production order though. We're going to start with season 1, episode 1, and we're going to make our way through every episode through. I think at the end of each season we'll do a season recap, like is how I'm imagining this will go. But like, that's the way we're going to tackle it. We're not going to do the hopping around that we did for Rebels because we were trying to stay relevant to what was happening on air. But I think there are better shows for that, like the Unifying Force and the Thursday Night Watch Along can be in the moment for things,
Yep.
and we can just cover the show straight through. The only regret I have on this show is that I feel like we tried to stay in the current conversation of what was going on in Disney, so we watched out of order when we could have just talked about what was going on while also watching in order. Like, that was the only mistake that I think about on this show where I wish I would have done something differently. But everything else has been awesome.
Sherry's got a good question here. Are we doing the movie?
The Clone Wars movie? No, okay. So I'm gonna put this up on the screen and say no, for a couple of reasons. One, I hate the movie. I think it's terrible. And they just did it on the Thursday Night Watch Along very recently. So I want to start with episode 1 of season 1, which is a Yoda heavy episode with Asajj Ventress. And I'm into that. I think the movie's terrible. And actually, even though it introduces Ahsoka, doesn't really do anything for like the Clone Wars. Like, I think season 1, episode 1 gives you a better sense as to what the Clone Wars is actually all about, though. I think Tom Kane's Yoda is terrific. I think Nika Futterman as Ventress is spectacular. Yeah,
My
we're
wife
gonna do that.
named her car Ventress. It's
Oh, I love
gray
that.
on the outside and it's black and red on the inside.
Black and red. I love that. I have a bright blue Mitsubishi, which is actually not that far off from the color of this shirt. So I like a little pop of color, but the interior is like gray, like all interiors of cars, unless it's gray or black, right? Like those are sort of the two standards. But yeah, I need a little pop of color.
She refers to my white truck as Voss.
As Voss. Oh, I like that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Quinlan ended up. And actually, there'll be a whole Quinlan arc in the Clone Wars that we'll get to talk about, which will be cool. And actually, there are a lot of like weirdo random characters. So here's my thesis on my feeling on the Clone Wars very quickly, because I know we're very over time today. But then thank you for everyone for sticking with us. What I think Clone Wars does really well is recontextualize the prequels and transform people in costumes into fully rounded out characters. And I actually think Maul is a good example of this. He was a character in a costume, right? It's backwards. So I'm like this is, I swear I'm pointing at Maul in my real life. So he was a stuntman, right? In a costume with very little speaking lines. Him more so. He was more developed, at least, than some of the others. But there are random Jedi that pop up in episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 that are just like people who are placed in costumes and don't have anything to do. And there's like no agency or motivation or even dialogue for a lot of them. And then the Clone Wars breathes life into them. Barriss Offee is probably the best instance of that. That is a real character with a real arc, and like a real tragic one and a really awesome one. And she is a woman in a costume. And I'm not downplaying what the actors did in that space. It's the writing that didn't give them anything to do. And the costumes are great. They look amazing. Like those character designs are killer, but they didn't do anything with Barriss Offee in
Right.
episode 2 or episode 3. There's literally nothing, right?
Well, she
Sometimes
was
they're
like
just
a member
standing
of the
there.
Cantina.
Yeah, exactly. So whereas in Clone Wars, damn, we get backstory, we get philosophy, we get action, we get amazing voice work. Meredith Salinger and Olivia Diabo bring to life Luminara and Barriss Offee in a way that like make them real. And we're gonna see that in the Clone Wars with a lot of characters. It's gonna happen with Maul. It's gonna happen with multiple Jedi. They're also gonna like course correct. Like there are some acting, or not acting. There's some casting changes that happened between episodes 2 and 3, and it led to contradictions in like the encyclopedia as to who a specific character was. Like Stas Ali and the other one were originally the same character, and then they fixed it and they're like, no, they're cousins. And so they explain how in Clone Wars that character is killed off and then replaced by her cousin on the council. They like fix things, and they also like make the prequels more interesting, I think. Like
it's really taking Clone Wars and putting the layers of the onion on it.
Yeah.
I mean, you just really got to tear the onion apart and really understand and see the detail of Clone Wars. Watching anything in the prequels without watching the Clone Wars, it just leaves it dull and faded.
Yeah. It adds so much flavor, so much context, and we get 7 seasons. Girl, there's 140 episodes, Skip. I don't know what you signed up for. You are in for it now.
I'll be here for a while.
It's a 3-year journey. If we're doing, because here's the thing, we're only going to watch one episode at a time. Doing a double episode is impossible, and we want to leave the breathing room on both sides, and we don't actually really want to go for an hour and a half each week. I think we're just going to do an hour. Today has been a nice, slow, long discussion about nothing at all related to Maul. But we will, for the Clone Wars, try to stay mostly on topic and cover the episode and do a little bit of pop culture recap, et cetera, et cetera. Like this week coming up, we're actually starting on the network like our Lego coverage. So this Thursday is the first Lego special that the Thursday Night Watch Along is going to be doing in prep for Rebuilding the Galaxy, which is coming up in 2 weeks. So it's summer vacation this week, and then I think Terrifying Tales or the holiday special next week, and then Rebuild the Galaxy comes out on like the 19th or whatever it is. So it's like really soon, which is crazy.
It's kind of hard to believe that we're out of the summer yet. I mean,
Yeah.
Summer vacation seemed like it was just a week or two ago.
I know, it's wild. And the Lego summer vacation is a blast and stupid fun, which is what I always say Star Wars needs to be. It needs to be fun, it needs to be weird. And we need to stop treating it like church. Like, it needs to be an amusement park. I was just seeing, all right, here's the perfect encapsulation. I was just seeing some overhead footage of people flying over Universal Studios Florida, where they're building Super Mario World or Super Nintendo World, right? And it is fun. Like, it looks really, really fun. There's going to be the go-kart racing game that's based on Mario Kart. There's the Donkey Kong Country game that's the roller coaster. And then there's all the activities you can do, getting into the pipes and playing the mini games and all this shit. And it's colorful and it's bright and there are characters everywhere and it feels so alive. And then you compare it to Star Wars Land, where I joke all the time that you can walk around, and once you get your 1 photo in front of the Falcon or your 100 photos in front of the Falcon and your picture in front of the TIE Fighter, and you do the one or two rides, you can go scan some crates. Like, it is a different vibe altogether. It is so serious. And that's what needs to stop. And actually, I think the Lego stuff is the perfect thing we need right now. It is the palate cleanser we need, especially after the hate of the Acolyte and the way it was received and the cancellation notice. It's just been like, we're in the darkest timeline. So Rebuild the Galaxy, I think, will save us. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So get ready for the Lego rewatches to start this week. It's going to be really fun. I think the boys will have a great time doing that. Also this week, we have Daughters of the Galaxy returning. So we have a new episode featuring Fennec Shand, which I'm very excited about. I think her character is like such an interesting one. And so Jamie and Ashley will be covering that later this week on Wednesday. I actually don't think we have the cover photo for it, but that's fine. And then we have a new Unifying Force later this weekend on Sunday. So that's what's going on here.
Good way to stick it all in there, Mark.
What's that?
A good way to stick it all in there. You covered everything for what else is going on with us.
I think that's everything.
An hour and a half, and we got
Yeah.
bits of what's going on to the rest of
We
them.
got 7 minutes of Maul, which is about his screen time in Rebels, honestly. But go watch them. We've watched all the Maul episodes at this point on Rebels. But we will, of course, cover him extensively on Clone Wars as we get there. But join us next week for the shorts, which I got to say, I think if anyone hasn't watched anything Rebels, it's probably the shorts. Like, it'll be a good time. So come watch with us. They're up on Disney Plus, so it'll be a good time. And we'll talk all things other pop. By then, like, I will have seen Beetlejuice again. I'll let you know if it's any different from the version I saw a couple months ago at the secret licensee screening, which I'm not allowed to talk about because I'm under obviously a very strict NDA. But like, it was fun. I loved it. And I tell people, I was like, I got a chance to see it early, go see it. Now, if I did get to see something ahead of time and I didn't like it, I just wouldn't say anything about it, which has happened in the past where I got to see something early and I was like, that's not good. I'm not going to tell anyone about it. And I didn't even tell people I went to the early screening. This time around, I was like, I went to an early screening and it's good, go see it. Like, I feel confident telling people like you're gonna like Beetlejuice. So that'll be good. Not just again because I have Halloween costumes to sell you,
but hey,
yeah. But also we have Halloween costumes to sell you. It's gonna be a popular costume this year. It'll be fun. Okay. All right. Oh, and yeah, everyone check out your Walmart, Target, and everywhere else the aisle set for Halloween. So now that Labor Day has happened, Halloween costumes are out along with the candy. So even if you're not going for costumes, go get you your Halloween candy. They're out, girl. It's out. It's Labor Day. Yeah, it's good times. All right, and with that, thank you everyone for staying with us and hanging out, especially on this Labor Day. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week, and of course, check out everything on the network happening and follow Virtual Cantina on all our social channels, especially on Instagram. All the reels are going up every Monday. We got the new hot seat from the family vacation, and there's more content coming. That we took so much video and so many photos. It's wild. So everyone keeps sending their stuff in too, so we can compile it all together.
The FOMO is building up for those that didn't go.
Yeah. And then the next big event, New York Comic Con is coming in October. And then we've got the Rhode Island Comic Con meetup in November. So much more to come on that as we get closer to it. And until, and ICCC, that's the next one. That's when is that? So,
October 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Got it. All right. So about a month away. All right. Yes. Great. All right, guys. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday. And as always, may the force be with you.
See you later.